my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone.
Hello everybody, welcome to Heidbangers. I'm Matty, joined tonight by Dave, by Alex, by Scott, by Gordon and by Charlie. Just going in the order on my screen, so I'll do a quick check-in, see how everybody's doing, but before we do that, just our usual bit of housekeeping with the Heidbangers podcast, just to remind you that we are not in any way, shape or form mental health experts. We're just talking about our own experiences, so don't take anything that we say as advice, and if you're struggling at all, seek help, speak to somebody that you trust, or a GP or the Samaritans, etc., and do not rely on this podcast. So Dave, we'll kick off with you. How are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm good. I'm glad the season's over, but I've survived it, so I'm happy that I've came out the other side. I'm good, and thanks for having me on. And I'd just like to say, can you do really good work, Matty? And probably before Heidbangers, Longbangers was kind of just reaching out to ordinary people like the guys on the call tonight, and it's great that that you've done that and provided that platform. So I'd like to just get that.
Oh, thanks very much. That's nice, very nice to you. Alex, how are you doing?
Fine, very relatable with the season being over. That's absolutely delighted. So, but then I'll be missing it within a couple of days' time. Wanting back to see Hibs.
I think I put a tweet out to that effect at the weekend. Saying it's like we can all be glad to see the back end of the season, but it's only going to be a matter of days before I wish the football was back.
It's when the kits come out. That's when you get all excited and that.
Or they announce a pre-season friendly at Dunbar or something. You're like, oh fuck, I could get to that. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just glad Eurovision's over with, so I don't have to hear about it ever again for another year. But yeah, football as well, so that's good.
We watched Eurovision nights. I watched it. I was kind of fired about on my phone while the wife watched it. That's my official story, which I'm sticking to. You know, like the British boy will be fucking raging about Russia bombing Ukraine because he would have won otherwise, eh? Like that is.
Well, I don't watch it, but okay. Well done, whoever won. Well done, team singing.
Gordon, how are you doing?
I don't even follow that. I'm very well actually, really good. Had a good weekend with the family. I'm feeling revigorated. Is that even a word? Revigorated?
Invigorated or reinvigorated?
Reinvigorated. That's the one I'm looking for. So I'm pretty good, pretty well. Thank you.
Your hair's nice as well, by the way.
Thanks.
And Charlie, how are you doing?
Doing good, mate. I wasn't at the game yesterday and we won 4-0, so that must say something about me. But apart from that, I'm doing good, like everyone else said. Buzzing the season's over, but missing them already.
Aye, I've not reached the stage where I'm missing them yet. So on the agenda tonight, we're going to start a kick off with Dave and talk a wee bit about the changing rooms and a sort of walk-in initiative that you've been organising, David. So what's the background there? What's your history with the changing rooms and how's this come about?
Well, the changing rooms obviously is a 12-week programme that Sam H has run. I don't know how many of your listeners have been through it, but it's been pretty successful and it was getting some traction just before COVID, and then kind of they went on a kind of like a Zoom-based kind of session, and then they picked it back up as restrictions allowed. So, and for anybody that's not done it, it's just for ordinary people. It's like really relatable. It's a safe space where you can just meeting people like yourself that you meet in the pub, and it's a platform where you've not got the kind of judge culture or the fear of burdening your family, and it's just an open place to talk. And guys, as we know, are pretty rotten at kind of saying how they're feeling. So I went after hearing about it on Longbangers. I was lying on a beach at the time listening to the pod, and I was pricing a job as well. So I, at the same time, I wish I never got the job that I priced. But anyway, the good thing I did, I reached to you guys, and I went along to the drop-ins as they were then. And they were quite well attended. various kind of guys that were just embarking on the 12 weeks and people that had been through it. So it was a really kind of just laid back atmosphere where you could speak if you wanted to speak, or if you didn't really want to engage, or just listen to kind of what the people around the boat were kind of feeling and how they were getting through life. And it's a big thing, because I don't know how about everybody else, but you know, I kind of had a preconception what someone with mental health kind of looked like, or how their life would be. And my life wasn't like that, and I was kind of in too comfortable a place to be to be suffering, and I was just a bit guilty that I felt how I was feeling when there's other people far worse around about me that were carrying their load far more easily than I was carrying mine. So anyway, we went to that, and I formed some real good friendships that I've still got, and through COVID, kind of we done the virtual drop-ins on Zoom, and they were well attended. And then I done the 12-week course then. So when we went through the 12-week course, it kind of just closed, and then it's like they're looking for a new intake. They've got a couple of new initiatives, but you got used to meeting these kind of people that you could kind of have proper conversations, or more relaxed conversations. And then that program just stopped and the door closed, and you were left just to get on with it. So it was just really having talked to a few guys on social media that after it, we decided that we would kind of try and get Sam H to just put the drop-in back on. And we had our first one the end of April there. So we're kind of doing that last Monday of the month now, and behind the goals, and the sort of famous 5 stands. So it was. We had a few bodies the first time, a couple of new guys, and I think Sam H are seeing it as it's a wee kind of stepping stone into the 12-week programme, or if you've done the 12-week programme, it's just a way of keeping in touch and making sure everybody's okay kind of thing. So we've got a second one on the 30th. It starts at 6 o'clock, 30th this month, and the community are they're taking an interest in it, the foundation, or the community. So I think it's going to be quite popular, and we're hoping to get like guest speakers on and just kind of motivational guys, and just something a wee bit different. It'll probably increase the frequency if the demand's there, but right now it's just monthly. So that's the kind of backstory to it.
It's good that it's the football club that's involved. I always think that was quite a clever thing to do, because people, and men especially, I suppose, or traditionally men, probably not so much these days, have that sort of connection with a football club, and it's like the stadium's a special place to most of us that have kind of grown up going along. So to be able to kind of go in sort of out of the usual context of being there for the football, and you know, sitting in the changing room, which I believe, you know, that's kind of have some of the sessions in there for the 12-week programme, don't they, or in the West Stand. And like I went along to the football fans in training, which was more about physical health than mental health a few years ago, and it was brilliant because you got to kind of, you know, walk around the pitch, which is like a daft thing. And if you're not a football fan, you probably think, what's special about walking around the pitch? But when you get to do it and you're just chatting to somebody, it's a brilliant thing. And so the changing room, Dave, what kind of effect did that have on you? Did you find it helpful?
Well, I really struggled to talk to my family. I didn't want to burden anybody, and I never really felt comfortable talking to my mates about it. I was kind of just, as I say, it's hard to kind of pinpoint. I don't know if anybody can pinpoint the day or the thing that kind of your life kind of changed, but for me, I was carrying a lot of stress, far too much stress, and I wasn't kind of parking my day job run into my life. And like I was saying, when I was listening to the podcast, I was on a beach pricing a job, my first day of my holiday. So I was kind of just, I had an unhealthy work balance, and it was just taking its toll, and really I couldn't see it until it had become kind of a crippling load, or really affecting my, like, kind of affecting everybody in my house, and I never really seen it. So it was just really a thing that I probably had to do, because I think my marriage was suffering, and things were kind of, all the things I was working for were starting to unravel. You know, I was just being too intense with everything, and it's hard to say really what happened at the changing rooms that kind of changed my mindset. I don't know, I think you just hear other people's stories and you think, well, everybody kind of goes through something in some episode in their life, and it's how you probably recognise it. If you're lucky, if you can recognise it early enough and you've got a good group of friends and you've got the ability to talk, and other people kind of have to go a bit deeper and then kind of before they decide they need a wee bit of help. But I quickly identified kind of my wee triggers and what it was in my life, and I really enjoyed the social aspect of the changing room as well. And it's quite good just talking to other people that are going through it. And like I talk to people in my work now that if they're kind of not feeling the best or they're under pressure or that kind of, I'm far more open than I was. I'd like to think my office door's always open, but so for that point of view, I think I got a lot to volunteering and just helping as well. I think for that kind of that's that side of it. I'm no one for sitting on my backside, and I think, as I say, I took a lot out of it pretty quickly, and it wasn't a scientist, it wasn't really medication, it wasn't kind of psychoanalysis, it was nothing like that. It was just sitting having a blather kind of thing, largely, and there was a few key messages in there that were quite subtle and that made you just kind of reflect. But I think you're right. I think we've been in the club. It takes a lot of the stigma away where you're not going to the docks, or you're not going to a medical facility. You're just kind of rocking up to the place you rock up to on Saturday, and it's the first time I went to the ground sober. I've got to add. So it was quite just laid back, the whole journey for me. I found it really easy and welcoming, and I liked the people that were there. And sometimes some people had real challenges and they were struggling. And again, it does put a wee bit of context on your life and makes you think about the things that are really affecting you. And they're not that big a lot of the times. They're in your head. And when you start asking yourself questions, and when you start making up 2 or 3 potential answers for that, sometimes you just create a situation that's not even there. And that's kind of, I think, for me, I liked it. And as I say, I'm really keen to get the drop-ins going again, where people can just rock up and there's no, you don't have to enter a program, or you don't have to be part of anything or sign up. You just, last Monday of the month, just come up, have a cup of tea, have a blather, you know. So
Find it easier talking to strangers at first?
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm saying, did you find it easier talking to strangers rather than your family? You said that you couldn't tell your friends at first. That was so that must be a big part of it.
I think it is. There's that level of trust there. You can see how everybody's acting with everybody, and you can tell people are trusting. They're not being dicks or kind of arseholes, you know. They're kind of, there is that kind of instant feeling in, no comfort, but trust is the word, and nobody's judging you, and it's a place where you can just really kind of just put it out there if you want, and if you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk. But as I say, there's people that have been carrying real heavy loads, and kind of you think, wow, kind of hats off to you, mate. You're hanging in there, you're doing great. And there's other people that just need a wee just need to maybe have a wee blather with somebody, and I think it's much easier. It's the judgment kind of, you can imagine telling your pals, or I couldn't, like, I'm Felice, you know, you just generally kind of got this conception that you're weak if you're kind of not feeling right, or you're, you know, and it's not right. You're actually quite strong if you can talk to somebody, but to take that step is massive, you know. What's the format like at the changing room, Dave? So you kind of mentioned there, you really like, you see the things on the movies where everybody sits around in a circle and they all take turns, or is it just like you just stand, like you say, have a cup of tea and everybody just blathers away to each other? Is it just kind of like a random gathering, or? Well, the changing room has got a real structure, but it's subtle. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's just really get everybody comfortable with people in the group. And Matty mentioned, like to do that, they'll walk around the stadium kind of 7 times. You go to the dressing room, you'll kind of see Hibs. So it's, people are kind of, there's an interest there that it's beyond kind of any mental health issue. You go and you're kind of getting all these tours that you wouldn't normally get access to. And like, there's just wee gems of conversation that generally just spark off on that journey, you know. And over the 12 weeks, they'll generally have us. They'll have by week 3. They'll probably be looking for people to kind of be comfortable and open with each other. They'll do wee daft quizzes, football quizzes, and stuff like that, just to kind of get everybody kind of relaxed. And then as the program goes through, I think it's they want you to look inward and kind of vocalise your feelings, and then other people will kind of comment on that, and they'll say, well, kind of, what about this? What have you tried that? What have you done this? And very much collaboration, shared experiences, and they have motivational speakers on. There's a wee guy for Hibs, Shep, that I mean, I'll not say too much about it, but his life story kind of is a movie. There's a movie there, and he comes in and kind of talks, and you meet players, and it's a really good thing, but it's not really a mental health. It doesn't feel like a mental health journey, if you know what I mean. It's just a journey where you meet really good people, and it's just a really safe space. And as I say, by the end of it, you do form these friendships and bonds, and it's like a different kind of friendship. It's like kind of deepest, darkest kind of secret stuff. You wouldn't. At the start of the course, you'd never dream you would have a conversation with someone about it, and by the end of it, you're pretty comfortable, or you get some really weird phone calls, kind of thing. I'm feeling this, I'm ready to do this, I'm ready to do that, but kind of some crazy, funny stuff happens as well. But it's, but no, I think it's, for me certainly, I wouldn't say I was kind of off the chart with mental health. I had a wee touch of depression. I had real kind of suffering for stress that was kind of spreading out my family, and I just wasn't handling it quite well. And for me, it gave me a wee refocus, and it worked pretty quickly for me. And I'm just keen to keep kind of dipping my toe in that environment, and just checking on the people I like as well. And I'm not an expert by any means, but we're just really keen to have a place where guys can still continue to come, have a cup of tea, and have a blather about life, you know.
I mean, it's having that like focal point, like, because that's just similar to this. Like, I met most everybody on this call through this podcast, and then we've got the WhatsApp group, and just having that general thing that we have in common with Hibs, or Scott came in, he doesn't like any to do with football, but he still appreciates it, and just having that one part there that we just kind of can all focus on, and then it just sparked the conversation and got us all together. I think that, like, just what you're saying there, that interestingly, when you're saying doing a tour, those talking points, because you've got that common interest, just starts that conversation. And even though there's not a huge amount of structure to it, that it doesn't feel like a mental health sort of initiative, just having those talking points and being able to spark a conversation with someone who's going through similar, because we've talked about it so many times, that it just makes such a, like, to me, it's made such a massive difference to know that someone else is going through something similar to what I'm going through. And that just like, I don't want anybody to go through anything bad, but the fact that you're not alone does make a massive difference.
No, it does, and life's tough at times. Everybody will go through a period of life where, whether it's an age thing, I think it was in maybe age with me. We spoke about mental ages earlier there, but you think you're bulletproof and kind of nothing's going to stick to you, and then life throws at you, and sometimes it does, and you've just got to realise that everybody kind of, or the lucky ones maybe no, but everybody is prone to something at some point in their life, and it's just probably how you deal with it. And sometimes if you pick the rocks up, or if you pick your own rocks up and put them in your rucksack, and life's getting heavier, but that's what people do, and you start beating yourself up, and it's sort of self-fueling, and so I think it's important that you do have space to talk to people that you feel comfortable doing that, and I think it's just a massive thing. It's like a trouble shared, a trouble half. That's all the old things, but no, it's. I think it's good that guys are kind of finding platforms to have these conversations, because again, you often, some of the things that come up, like imagine being in the trenches, and imagine working in the docks and the shipyards. How can you feel hard done by now? I mean, you're going 3 holidays a year, or whatever your life is like. It's not as bad as people who have went before you, but you're still kind of feeling it. But the world's a difficult place to live in at times.
I think you underestimate how bad it was for the folk that did go before us. Just they never had the mechanisms to talk about it like we have. Like it's just that changed times. I imagine if if there was the same awareness around mental health that folk back then could have talked about it, they would have still been talking about it. The changing rooms, when it first came out, was sort of targeted at a specific age group. Are the walk-in sessions sort of aimed at the same age group, or are they sort of wider?
No, I think anybody. I think there's it's just an open door, and if I mean, there was a couple of young lads on the changing rooms on my course, and there was a couple of older guys. But I think you're right. I think it did come out with a kind of targeted age group in mind. But no, I think any age is welcome. You know, I think I think with social media and all the rest of it, it's kind of, I think nobody's kind of spared for. It's a case of when you maybe have a wee problem in your life, no if these days. But no, just anybody's welcome. So get a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Amazing what a cup of tea solves, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie, how do you feel about that kind of thing, Charlie? Is that something you think you would use, or?
I was just, before we started recording, I was texting wee Jack Gillis, who's done the change room, and we're going to go along to the drop-ins, I think. So we're looking forward, at least I'm looking forward to just getting to Easter Road in a different setting. But I'll definitely use it for sure.
Oh, it'll be good. It'll be great to see us.
Mm.
And I know Jack I think he was in. He's certainly the drop-ins. I've been there. I don't think it was in my programme, 12-week programme, but I know Jack well, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next episode of German football. I've not heard before.
And again, Jack likes the German football. He's never raised it with us before. I'm not betraying any confidences with Jack. Jack's talked about it on the podcast before as well. So, Scott, I mean, you're like a long distance participant in Heidbangers, so it's probably a bit much to expect you to jump on a train and come up to Edinburgh for it. What sort of things have you got in your area that serve that purpose?
I don't know anything specifically. I can do things. I treat myself every day, little things to make sure to keep myself happy, but I don't have a specific place to go or people to see. The one thing I have got is I've got good support of people on like WhatsApp and Twitter and stuff. Is, you know, when you can't sleep, is just knowing who to text when you're up and see who's up. You know, you're like, I go, who's awake? Who wants a little chat? And I think sometimes that's really important. You know, if you can't sleep or you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got a friend who's up because they've got a baby or they can't sleep either. It's always nice to have someone to text with. Even if you just send a memes to each other at 3 o'clock in the morning, at least you've got someone you can go, can't sleep with, you know. But I don't really have a sort of local group, but I've just got a sort of, you know, loads of different fingers in different pies to make sure that that's someone I can talk to if I need to.
Like a wider support group, that's good. So Dave, just to confirm that the 30th, Monday the 30th is the next one?
It's 6 o'clock, yeah, and just pile up. And as I say, the first one was quite well attended, but we've definitely got plans for to get people along, maybe try to tap into the club's resources a bit more, maybe get a motivational speaker, and even maybe like if it's popular, we've done a lot of Zoom calls, and like just mentioning there about having people to chat to. Sometimes it's easier to have a Zoom call, for instance. We could get a football player on, and maybe we'll try that format, because it worked really well during COVID. It went virtual, and it was quite good, and there was people from all over the place were on the call. So no, it's certainly monthly now, and it'd be great to anybody who wants to come, be very welcome. So. And
you don't need to pre-book or anything, you can just rock up on the day?
Yeah, definitely. And even anybody who wants to consider doing a 12-week programme, I think Sam H maybe see this as a good kind of steering thing to get somebody up to hear people that have been through it, and then they can maybe go reach out to the changing rooms and kind of register for the 12-week programme kind of things. So they seem quite keen that there is an open door now rather than just closing it at the end of the 12 weeks. So I think it's definitely, there's a demand for it. It's just really getting the message out there.
Yeah, and good on you for pursuing it as well. I think it's really important because I think things like that, there is that risk, isn't there, that you go do the 12 weeks and then it comes to a conclusion and then you're sort of left thinking, well, what next? So having something then to have the walk-ins is brilliant to kind of keep it going. But yeah, like I say, well done for pushing it and making it happen.
Can I just say something? What you said before about comparing to people from different times or different generations, yeah, they went through like world wars and stuff like that. But we are literally every single day going through unprecedented times, and I'm sick of going through unprecedented times. You know, you've got fuel crisis and COVID and blah. We are still living through stuff other people wouldn't have been able to handle, and we shouldn't compare to what other people are able to sort of.
No, for sure. But my point.
The fact we get up every day in mean times, horrible times. I wouldn't even trust the news on that. Get up and get dressed and go out, but still able to do it. I think, you know, more power to us, even if we do that, needs a little bit of help.
Yeah. And you're right, the times we're living in are really unprecedented. They're like food poverty, fuel poverty. It's like massive change that as a society we're going through, and it's very difficult for a lot of people right now.
I put the news on, and all I call the news now is what now? What's happening now? What now? What more can you do? You know? So you shouldn't compare, but I can see why you would. But we are living through
for sure.
Crazy times right now.
So we just have to find better jobs and work more hours. Apparently that's it. Why didn't they think of that before?
I'll start my OnlyFans tomorrow.
One of the other things we were going to touch on tonight, I appreciate we're kind of drawn towards the end of the time for the episode, but we've kind of skirted around the subject of age in a few episodes. We have a range of ages here from Charlie, who's Charlie 18, 19, something like that.
Aye, right. I wish.
Well, Dickhead who'd be the oldest in the group, possibly me, David. I care about how we age against each other, right? But I'm mid-40s, so I'll not ask anybody their age anyway, right? But
I think I could be the oldest then.
61.
Oh, Scott's like 60s, isn't he?
I have got a joke going on Twitter. I'll put a picture of myself up there with happy birthday, I look great for 60. People wish me happy birthday. They don't question it. They just say happy 60th birthday. So then I put one on going happy 28, not a fight. Anything over 55, people think it's my birthday, and that's not my age.
Happy birthday, mate.
Happy birthday.
79 today.
I remember the first time that happened to me was when I worked at HSBC. You know, when somebody says, Ken, how old are you? And you sort of make the mistake of saying, how old do you think I am? And the guest, it was like 5 years older than I actually was. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was downhill from there. I thought, never asking anybody that question ever again.
You've got the whole Philip Schofield Silver Fox thing going on, haven't you? So, you know.
I had it from early days. We were down in Blackpool, so there's another thing that makes you feel old is my daughters. So my youngest is now a teenager, and my oldest daughter's 16. My oldest son, he's like grown up now. He's 19 this year, and the girls went to go to Blackpool for their birthday, so we're away down to Pleasure Beach and going through it, and Jane said, what age are you going on? I'm going on the fucking rides, too old for this. Because in my head I'm like, she says, what are you not going on the rides for? And then, you know, when you just catch yourself, you're like, why am I being an old bastard here? And so I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to go on them, and I had a great time. I was like, I wish I'd just gone in with this attitude of, remember what it was like when you were young and you didn't bother about doing these things. It totally changed the day, like from going down being well, I wasn't miserable about it, but, you know, just thinking, I'll just watch and then do something. But I felt good for ages after that, apart from like the bumps and the bruises for getting chucked about roller coasters. But it was such like a refreshing thing to do, just to remind yourself of what it was like being 20 years younger or whatever. No, I think it's roller coasters aren't necessarily a young man's game, but that's how it felt before I went on them.
It's just a height thing, yeah. You've got to be a certain height, not an age.
Aye, this is true. I've always been alright for the height bit. Well, not always, obviously, when I was wee, obviously, but since I've been of age to enjoy these things, I've never had to worry about that. But
Was that like a mental thing or a physical thing that made you feel like, oh, I can't do this? Did you think I'm too old for this physically? I'm going to get like battered about on these roller coasters, or was it just I'm too old to be on kids' roller coasters?
I think it was definitely a mental thing. Well, maybe a bit of a physical thing, but it's a good question because I'm not quite sure. It's like you turning a grumpy old man. Ken, when you just things start annoying you that didn't annoy you, you didn't even think about when you were younger. It was just that sort of thing. Just it's not for me. That's kind of when you get into that mindset where things that are there are for other people, other younger people, and that's probably where my head was at with it. It's like kids are all desperate to go on these things. I'm going, oh, fuck that.
I think the older you get, the canny be arse gene gets stronger in you. Every year it passes there, and I think there's people that are young at heart, and you're right. You've got to give yourself a kick up the arse at times and go and get out there.
You're only as young as you feel, or only as old as you feel.
I remember a good few years ago, it was my nephew's birthday, and he was in one of those ball pool play places, and all the adults were just stood around doing now, and I went, what? So I kicked my shoes up and jumped into the ball pool and ran up the slide and went there. I was knackered, and I had a sweat on us. But I went right up and down that slide like no one's business. What? Why are you all stood around talking, waiting for the kids to finish play? Ball? You know what I mean?
My kids wanted me my kids wanted me to go on the trampoline with them yesterday, and I ended up going on, and I was like, it wasn't until I got on I realised I'd had 6 pints, and I was like, this is really shite, but they're having a brilliant time, and I thought I had to get off quite quick. But they seem to be like, they're looking at me as how I looked at my uncles and dad and aunties and that, like when I was their age. Like, you just think, oh, they're old as fuck, man. They're like, that's what adults are, eh? I didn't feel like an adult, so it's weird. I'm 35, so like I didn't class myself as a proper grown up yet.
I'm the same age as you, Alex, but I think so. A lot of the blockers are for me is the fear and the frustration of, like, if I go and do this 10-meter sprint, I'm going to be absolutely knackered. Whereas, like 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't have even been out of breath. And so we've got a trampoline in the back garden, and I've got a bad back, which sounds like, but I've had it. It was a footballing injury for years, so compressed discs. And every time I go on the trampoline, and I get on alright, and the wee man loves it, but my back is in bits for days after it. And it's that kind of fear. It's like he badgers me to go home when it's nice weather and on the trampoline. I'm like, I really want to, and he loves it. But then I'm like, physically, I'm going to be crippled for a few days, or I'm just going to be knackered when I do this, or I'm going to be knackered when I do that. And that's what makes me stop doing stuff that I used to do that you would consider a young man's activity.
Well, wait till you get grandkids coming along. I've had a period where my kids want to go for meals and very grown-up stuff, and then I've just got 3 grandkids that are absolutely crazy. And when you run, you're worried about blowing out your backside. When I run 10 yards, I'm worried about having a heart attack. So you've just got to enjoy it. 35 is a great day, but take that on a minute.
My dad, sorry, when you go.
I was going to say, where do you stand on water fights? Because it's another thing, kids like water fights, but you definitely hit an age where you go, fuck it, that's annoying. It stops being fun and becomes annoying. And that's probably like a good example, because that's not a physical thing. Really, that's purely like a, I will get soaked here.
If you're going to be involved in a water fight, start it and run away, and then just let everybody else get on with it. I
don't think there's anything wrong with wiping out a few kids when you're having one. I think you can be very competitive there. That's an age-free sort of sport, and you're allowed to as well.
I said to my cousin just the other day about the summer's coming up, the Bairns will be playing in the garden together. Says, right, see when they're all doing that and they're all kicking off, both of us just have to go and get the hose and just fucking attack them at the same time and see how they get on. It'll either go one of 2 ways. So, but that sounded quite fucking evil, that, but.
Nah, that's all right. We took it in the spirit it was intended.
Aye, fair enough. That's what I meant.
It's certainly very calculated. I don't know about you.
You thought that through, premeditated.
Definitely.
There's definitely a benefit to play, though, isn't there? Like I suppose that's probably what we're saying here. That didn't really. I think you kind of lose the benefits of play as you get older. It's probably something you should probably make a bit of time from.
Physically, you may not be able to play. But look at me. I'm sat here in a cartoon T-shirt, the Green Lantern, the figures. I've still got the mentality of a 12-year-old, but with the pay packet of a mid-40s-year-old. So mentally, I'm 12, but physically, I'm nearly 50. So yeah, I can still want to do those things, but I just go, how about I just buy a nice little figurine for myself and then sit on a nice comfy couch and look at it instead of jumping around being an idiot. You can still have that childish element. You can just taper it to your old, fatigued, saggy body. No offense.
I think on a serious note, play and pastimes are one of the first things you drop when you're kind of struggling with your mental health. It's really important to keep your hobbies up and try and do them more, no kind of look for an excuse not to do them. So that's
that was my lockdown hobby. I bought one figure during lockdown and then look what happened. It just shows my mental health. Every time I'm sad, I buy a toy.
Everybody needs something to take you out yourself, to be fair. Yeah. And let's face it, Hibs didn't do that, so you need something else.
So what I'm hearing there is we're all meeting at the Meadows in the summer, then the first nice day we get with water pistols and super soakers and
Aye.
We'll get our tops off.
Taps off, get the beers. Right, that's us out of time. So just a wee reminder, the changing room drop-in sessions, Famous 5 stand at Easter Road, 30th at 6 o'clock. Everybody welcome, cup of tea and a biscuit and a great chat with some great people. Everybody, thanks very much for coming on as always. We will be back with, what day are we on? Monday. We'll be back with Shortbangers, so get your questions in for that. And if you want some extra content, you can subscribe at longbangers.hubwave.net, which we would appreciate. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.